every missile that hit Gaza has a price tag, and someone is paying for that price tag. And what would you think if I tell you that as an American, you are legally obliged to pay for every missile that goes down on innocent civilians in Gaza? You see, we usually talk about the political and ideological elements behind the conflict, but we don't talk as much about the economic interests behind this barbarity and this genocide inside of Gaza that Israel committed and threatens to continue, by the way, and constantly escalates. Now, of course, we're just talking about this example here of what Israel does, saying that Israel is, well, the country that receives most money from the US taxpayers. But this example also stretches to other locations as well. Now, let's start with the pipeline. Let's talk about the companies directly. We're talking about Lockheed Martin. We're talking about Raytheon. We're talking about General Dynamics. We're talking about Boeing. And we're talking about Northrop Grumman. And these are just some of the names, by the way. 3.8 billion US dollars is the number that they get, Israel. But not many people realize exactly how that works. So focus with me slightly. When Israel gets foreign aid, the money isn't necessarily going to Israel. As a matter of fact, in many cases, it stays in the United States. How? Well, the money is being taken from you because you have to pay tax. And then from you, it goes to the companies that are supposed to, by contract, provide that aid. You see, when the United States tells Israel or another country, we're going to give you 3 or 4 billion, that 3 or 4 billion is conditional on buying American weapons. So in essence, we have the people being taxed and then obliged with that taxation to pay for companies that pass those bombs and missiles and radar systems and intel and surveillance, whatever it is, to Israel to kill the Palestinian people with. Whether it's Israeli defense, whether it's Israeli army, whether it's the Israeli security services, it stretches from one place to another. Of course, the main body here is the Israeli army of terror that conducts all of this, but it stretches to other parts too, with the day-to-day abuse of human rights against the Palestinian people. And that doesn't necessarily happen only in cases of full-blown conflict, full-blown. No, it can happen on the day-to-day basis too. Then you have some people who serve this entity, but they take more of a back-end approach. Technology, things to do with demolitions, bulldozers, logistics. Every war has things that don't explode too. The financial machine that's behind this war. And it's very relevant to what we're talking about, because at the end of the day, if that money goes to a side that is capable of conducting all of this destruction, then you're serving that whole enterprise altogether. Whether it's by helping it survive financially, keep it afloat, support it with the data, whatever it is, all of that is included. Now, the taxpayers, and especially if we're talking about the United States now, the taxpayers pay all of that to Israel, and the numbers are staggering. Try to come up with get some statistics in relation to the numbers. One of the averages is $5,000 per person a year. There are other calculations too, some less, some more. But on average, we're talking about $5,000 to just over $5,000 a year. Imagine all of that money coming from the American taxpayers and being spent on healthcare in the United States. I don't know, feeding the poor, rehabilitation programs for people in America. Yet they deliberately go and send that to a country that hasn't only committed the worst crimes on humanity, but also is threatening to continue with more destruction. So we have here the moral and the ideological layer. Morally, of course, no one can justify what Israel does in Gaza. Well, some people probably can, who have gone so far to a level where they actually can justify it by denying and ignoring, and but we have these levels of ideology and belief, but there is that layer of money at the end of the day. There is that economic and financial layer. And that financial layer is vital, because if we put the ideology and politics on the side for a bit, in any business trade, in any normal trade, you think to yourself, who's benefiting? Who's benefiting? Who's making the money? And who wants it to continue? Who views conflicts as means for an economic engine, for an economic vehicle? Gaza has been the example of the machinery of this global militarism, or American militaristic oligarchy, to be more accurate, at play. And we've seen that before. We've seen that in Iraq, we've seen that in Afghanistan, we've seen that in Yemen. We're still seeing it in Ukraine too. The stocks of some of these companies rise up because, well, they're making profit, they're making money. And there's a bigger problem, by the way. That bigger problem is the fact that these people, or the people who make money out of these wars, out of this military industrial complex machine, view peace and stability as an enemy. You see, they always tell us about security, and we need to secure and secure. Security and stability and peace go against what they want. They want war. They don't like ceasefires. They don't like peace deals. They don't like peace treaties. They don't like genuine security and genuine stability. They don't want any of that. That's the most terrifying part, by the way. Because you think to yourself, well, if there's something now, and there's a de-escalation, there's some sort of a peace going on, well, what's going to happen next? I'm sure the military-industrial complex isn't going to be sitting there thinking, oh, great, cool. Yeah, so we don't have to sell weapons anymore. Fine, we'll shut down. No. The next campaign is being engineered, as we speak. And they have the front, the Christian Zionists will tell you God's chosen ones, and Zionists in general push for this ideology and propaganda. They try and deflect from what they do by creating tensions and problems between societies in the same country, people of the same nationality even, and do everything to shift the blame and deflect from what they're doing. And that's going hand in hand with the military-industrial complex making tons of money. And we're primarily focusing on the MIC at the moment because there are other sides who are benefiting too. But let's focus on them here, because they play a really, really big role. And I know we've spoken about them before, but not to the sufficient level. And every time you have some sort of a prospect for de-escalation or some sort of peace, some sort of a deal for a period of time, you think, what are we going to see next? Because behind every explosion, there's an invoice. And behind every tragedy, you have a transaction. And these people want explosions and tragedies to have invoices and transactions. That's the tragic truth. And that's why I'm speaking about this today, because unfortunately not many people speak about this. And if we look, next time you see something, or if you look at one of these conflicts, look at one of those soldiers, right? Those Israeli terrorists, for example. Look at their gear and ask yourself, how much does all of that cost? From the top to the bottom, to the guns, to the machinery, and then we go to the big stuff. Now, although not many people speak about this to the level required, now is one of the most important times to speak about the military-industrial complex and how it profiteers from people's suffering and tragedy and from genocides all across the world. Because we can't just simply talk about it from an ideological perspective. We can't just simply talk and discuss the ideas and political stances of the perpetrators of this genocide without addressing who is directly making money out of it. And those people who are making money out of it, regardless of their ideology or background, are interested in it. So they're willing to entertain the idea of this Zionist ideology or the chosen one's ideology, whatever it is, because that ideology brings them profits. And so long as these people remain there in that same position, making money out of other people's suffering and out of the military-industrial complex and its arms globally, we're going to continue to have problems.